Yeah, it was so unexpected. I think it's one of those things where if you're, there's so many different measures of success. If you're trying to be successful in business or any part of life, it's like really about just being ready for when opportunity shows up, because that was not an opportunity that I was expecting.
Welcome to Insights into Success. We're with your host Paul Dodds. We hope to educate, inspire and motivate you to achieve your own personal success. We talk to guests from all around the world from a variety of walks of life to hear the realities of their own journey to success. What challenges have they faced? How have they coped with failure? And what have been the keys or will be the keys to their own success? In our Read to Succeed interviews, we talk books that have inspired our guests, and for some, they share their secrets to marketing success. Join us as we give you insights into success. Welcome to Insights into Success, where today a special guest is none other than Connor Snyder. Now, Connor Snyder is the co-founder of Storyy. So I'm going to ask Connor to kick this interview off by telling us what the heck is Storyy?
Yeah, so Storyy is a app and a agency that helps content creators share their authentic message online. So you give us raw content and we turn that into engaging social media presence that builds authority and builds influence.
Right. So if people create a video, then they'll give it to you and you would help put together that video or to edit that video in a manner that's going to ideally have the maximum benefit when they publish it on social media.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And one of the things that's kind of unique about what we do is we actually give people AI generated ideas of content to create. So a lot of people, they've got, topics they want to be known for and influence in their communities around, but they don't necessarily know how to take that knowledge in their head and like turn it into engaging content. And so we give them an outline based off of the topics they want to be known for. So that way, when they record their videos, they are talking about things that are going to engage their audience. And then we go do all the beautification and customization to really make them stand out uniquely online.
So they have to record the raw video, but then you'll take that over and then basically edit it and lift it to a professional level.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Yep.
And what about if the person is, let's say they're here in New Zealand, and I don't know, let's say I'm a local real estate agent here in New Zealand. Are you able to provide or help create content that would be specific to that geographic area, or is it going to be more sort of generic content that you're able to help with, given obviously different countries, different parts of countries, etc.?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got clientele all over the world, and we definitely can support specificity to a country or a region around certain topics. And so that's part of the nice thing about this flexibility with outlines. I personally don't believe that if you want to be a good creator online, you should follow a script. Like I remember early on, I would go and record videos with people for Facebook ads, and the ads that I would see perform the most effectively would be ones where they kind of like were more real and raw versus the people that would like go and write this huge long script, and you'd see them on the camera and their eyes would move left to right. And as soon as you saw that, you just felt like it wasn't genuine anymore.
Yeah.
So really it's like, if I'm a real estate agent in New Zealand, we can give you an outline specific to New Zealand, but also you as a creator have to bring your own thoughts and own perspective and own experience, because as powerful as AI and these tools are now, people relate to humans, right? We relate to other people, and we need to be able to communicate those experiences effectively.
Yeah, and I think, the more authentic you can be, the better. One of the kind of conversations I've had with people is about testimonials, going for their kind of full Hollywood production video testimonial versus the good old iPhone, something's just happened, getting their raw response. And I guess I'm interested to hear your feedback. I kind of, in my opinion and experience, there's kind of a place for both of them, but definitely it really overall, I'd say, resonates more with people when it is quite natural and authentic. The Hollywood production, if it's on your website and that,
Yeah, I mean, because you're trying to have a very high level of quality of content, having the testimonials, produced at a high level does look good. But you do run the risk of people going, yeah, but it's all a bit too contrived. It's not really real. Whereas the good old, say, let's take real estate agent again. They've just had an auction. They've just sold their house for a record price. You got your iPhone and saying, hey, how was the experience for you? People can see that this is very real, and they're not practicing any of it. It's all genuine. Yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts in those sort of scenarios?
Yeah, people can sniff stuff out. Like we all wise up to what the ads are, right? Like you only have to click on the sponsored news article once before you're like, I'm never clicking on the sponsored news article again, right? Like you start to sniff that stuff out. And like you said, there's a time and place for these like high production, big value kind of video edits. I think that there's certain implicit messages in those kind of things, right? Like those things are obviously expensive. So when someone's paying a lot of money to get this high production thing, it's like, oh, they must have the resources to do that thing. And there's this implicit message of, resources and authority and brand there. But I think a lot of the times, especially in the modern age, a lot of those things can be faked. A lot of those things can be spoofed. And so I think it's a mistake that, marketers or influencers or anyone that's trying to really like get a message out there makes, is they think they have to have high production, when in reality they need authenticity. And you can do things in the editing room that are going to enhance authenticity rather than detract from it. But really the best videos are the ones that people actually make. And I would tell anybody, like, if you're telling yourself, I can't make a video for a testimonial or to share information unless there's this like huge production to it, like you said, you've got an iPhone in your pocket. Like that video is going to be good enough.
Yeah. And isn't that amazing these days, really, that you can actually put together what you need to produce a decent video very cheaply these days? I mean, you can use your iPhone, just get a tripod, have a good microphone, have a light, and you're pretty good to go, really, and you can produce something fairly decent. And I think that, from my point of view, the message is the most important thing. People will be forgiving if it's not top-notch recording, camera work, if it's got a great message. If the person's really good, that's in front of them, that's engaging, sincere, and they've got some really interesting things to say, then if the camera works a bit off, people will forgive that. But if the content's crap, then no, they won't. What's your thoughts?
No, I totally agree with that. So do you all use Craigslist in New Zealand? I don't know how much of an international presence Craigslist
I know what it is, but we don't have it in New Zealand, no.
Well, that makes sense, because Craigslist user experience is awful. It's like one of the ugliest websites. You look at it and you're like, how are people still using this? But it's endured, right? And I think that's one of these examples of like form over function. Sometimes if it does a good job of just getting the information out there, then that's good enough, right? And I totally agree. Like, you can just have a raw video and that can do the job, and you don't need to have this crazy UI or crazy editing. I think authenticity really is the common factor, I think, of people that are really successful creators, right? They are obsessed with their core message that they're trying to get out there, and that, trends of the moment don't distract them. They're focused on, how do I genuinely share this real message?
I think, from my experience, feedback I've had, I think a lot of people get caught up in wanting the quality of the production to be very high before they'll even have a go. And from my point of view, my attitude is, don't let that hold you back. Just get out there and have a go. The quality will get better over time. But if you keep waiting for perfection, you might never get there. Whereas if you get out and have a go, you're going to start to get into a rhythm, and things will get better anyway. I mean, I haven't seen it, but early ones. But I understand Joe Rogan, for instance, when he started out doing his podcasts, they were pretty awful, really. And look at the guy now. But he didn't wait until perfection before he started. He just got out there and had a crack and kept on going.
That's exactly right. I mean, the amount of people I've talked to, they're like, yeah, I want to start recording videos, but first I got to go spend $3,000 on a camera, and I got to save up for that first so I can afford to buy that. And it's like, I watch those people save up, buy the camera, and then the camera sits and just collects dust, right? It's not really about the camera, right? And I think a lot of times it's really people get nervous. Like we get nervous to like actually share what's in our head. We're worried that, you know, someone from growing up in high school or our small town or someone we met in college or our coworkers are going to look at whatever we make and be like, oh, that guy's making something. That guy thinks he's something. He thinks he's able to go out there and share a message. And that's really, really not what you can't let those voices play into your head. Right. So I think a lot of times we look to like the tech or the format as an excuse to not take action. When in reality, if we just jump into it and we're consistent, then, you know, you prove all those voices in your head wrong and you start to make something meaningful.
So tell us about Storyy. You know, what is the story behind Storyy? How did it all come about?
Yeah, I think the story behind Storyy kind of started out in small town Utah. Wow. I'm from Utah, and I grew up in a town where everyone looked the same and thought the same as me. You know, it's not really the most diverse place on the planet. But I had the most like ideal childhood, you know, like building tree houses in the summer with my friends and doing that whole thing. And, you know, when I was in high school, it was when Facebook was really starting to like hit the mainstream. It was like just barely ending where only the college people could do it. And now they were opening access up to everybody. And so I remember getting on there and, you know, me and my friends would make dumb groups and I'd played all the Farmville games, all that stuff. And my parents would come into the office and they'd be like, you got to get off Facebook. Don't you know you're never going to make money sitting on Facebook on a computer all day? And, you know, now I've got a social media company. So funny how things work out. But that's kind of where it started, was just this like genuine fascination of like, whoa, I can connect with anyone in the world and get their perspective on any given thing, where in the past I'm limited by my geography and everyone around me kind of thinks the same. But now all of a sudden I've got this whole world of perspectives and stories that I never had access to before. And that was just so, I don't know, like on a spiritual level, satisfying to me. And it really ingrained in me this like deep belief that when we do it the right way, social media can be a really powerful tool that brings us together.
Yeah. And so when you like, did you start out like as a social media agency and then this whole app and the AI has just evolved from that? How did that all work?
Yeah. So, you know, after I had graduated high school, I went to college and I was working in the Master of Business Administration program at the local university here. And I was just in the office as an assistant. I wasn't in the program, and they needed more applicants. And I, again, loved, you know, messing around on social media. And I told them, you know, we should try running social media ads. Like everyone that I know that would be applying for this program is spending time on social media, and good advertising is going where the people are. So let's try running some ads. So they gave me this $500 budget, which was just like mind blowing to me at the time. And I started running ads and it worked. And I was like, whoa, I actually can make social media ads work. And that led me going and getting a job. And even after I got a job out of, you know, doing that part-time gig, they kept me on as a contractor to keep running ads for them. And even to this day, you know, almost, I mean, geez, it's been close to 10 years now. I'm still doing work for, you know, Utah State University's MBA program and, you know, doing social media stuff. And so it really started off there as like I can actually make money consulting people on this.
And so you went out and you started out your own agency. Did you do that on your own? And why did you go out on your own as opposed to working for somebody else?
Yeah. So I was still working full time. You know, it was a side gig, and it was definitely wasn't something where I was like, oh, this is going to be my, you know, business I'm going to start forever. It was like, oh, this is a great way to like, you know, make a little extra cash. And I went and worked at this first job, and I was there for 3 months, loved it. It was fantastic. And one day I walked into the office and my boss, he sat me down and he's like, look, the CFO has been cooking the books. The financials are not what everyone thought they are. And we have to lay off a third of the company today.
Oh, wow.
And you're one of them. And so immediately my first job after school, and I'm like, I've got to figure out like what to do now. And it was that moment, not that I went and did my own thing full time, but I just recognized that I wanted to be more in control of my destiny. I did not like the stress. I did not like feeling like at any given moment where everything seemed like it was perfect, someone could pull the rug out under me like that. And so I went and got another job. It was at a mortgage company. It was the first job I can find. It was like the most boring place to do social media marketing. But I learned a couple things there. I learned one, that was a business where every single person made money from their network and their influence. Like they had to be influencers in their social network in order for them to get business. And so I was like, well, let's create some of these authentic, real videos, share your knowledge with people, and they're going to come and work with you. And that's what happened. And one of my coworkers was like, hey, you seem like you're pretty good at this. I have a network. I know a lot of people and you have a lot of know-how. What if we partner up and actually make a real business out of that? And so that's what we did. We filed the paperwork and started the business together, and it's been awesome. It's been really great. And so that's when we really started Storyy, was when me and him started this formal filing of paperwork and started building this agency over time.
And how long ago was that you started the agency?
So that was almost 4 years ago, just shy of 4 years ago. Yeah.
And then when in the whole time frame did the whole app come along with the AI?
So we, if there's anyone, in your audience that's thinking about building an app or building any sort of technology, I would highly recommend starting with like no code tools. There's a lot of tools out there where you can automate systems and processes without building your own app, right? And I've used a lot of them to try and like build, MVP, minimum viable product versions of the app we eventually wanted to build. And so we actually started the app just about a year ago. And before that, we had basically duct taped a website and some no-code tools and text messaging together to kind of prove out the concept. And so I would say we've been using technology to deliver the solutions for longer than that, but our actual app has been about a year now.
Wow. And so you went into this with a business partner. How has that been? How do you find it? Like, because obviously there's people out there go out and do their own thing versus those that go together with a business partner. For you, how's it worked being with a business partner?
Yeah, it's been really great. I think that it's not at all what I expected to be. And one of the things that when you start off as a side gig, you don't necessarily see the end goal of what you're getting to. Like I didn't start the side gig thinking we were going to go and get to where we were now, right? And I think that's kind of a good question that if I could go back to my younger self, I would say like, ask yourself if this took off and got big, is this the person you want to partner up with? And I think I got lucky because Austin is the yin to my yang. I'm a little bit more like methodical, engineering, and he's a little bit more of like type A, alpha, go get sales, go make deals, go make relationships. And I think that that's been a very big advantage for us because the places where I'm weak, he's strong. The places where he's weak, I'm strong. And so we balance each other out. And I think that lets us go far.
And how has it been? Like, have you had your challenges? And if so, what have they been?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's, like I said, type A, extremely assertive. He doesn't care what you think. He's going to give it to you straight, right? And I'm a little more soft-spoken, and I think I'm a little bit more of like an emotional thinker. And so sometimes he can be like extremely intense to me and I'm like, well, you got to back off, dude. And you got to like give this to me in like some really clear language or I'm going to get offended. Right. I can think of times where, we'd be working with a team member and I would be like, be really sensitive to what was going on with the team member. Maybe when I shouldn't be, maybe when that team member is actually like making a bad impact on the rest of the team. And then he might be going in where I feel like he's hot but he's actually just getting rid of a cancer that's starting to fester in the business, right? And what's interesting about those kind of interactions, because they happen all the time, that's just business and that's just life. Like, you're going to have these intense disagreements, but what's great is we can go away from any of those scenarios and have really candid communication about what I thought, what he thought, and then come to an agreement about what we want to do in the future. We have very open, candid communication, and I think that's what works, because anyone you partner with, you are going to have fundamental disagreements on, because that's just being human. If you're married, like your spouse is going to be that way. If you have kids, your kids are going to be that way. Your parents are that, like, no one's the same. So the key is, can you communicate about those differences in a way that's constructive and positive versus, exacerbating problems.
So in terms of your organization, who looks after the HR side?
So that's an interesting story. So when it was still a side gig, I was working full time for a tech software development company, and I was product managing a pretty big team of devs. And this had been going on to the point where it was big enough that we could afford to hire me into the business full time. And I remember going to my boss with this like trepidation of like, I don't know, like, this feels like there's going to be a problem when I tell him I'm going to quit and go into my side gig full time. Like, it's going to catch him off guard. And so I told him where we were at and how things were going. And he looked at me and he was like, "You're doing that well? Well, what if we, wrote you a check and jumped in for the ride with you guys?"
Oh, wow.
Which was like not even close to my expectations of how that conversation was going to go. And so that's actually what happened. And because of that, we basically have shared services and shared help with them and brought on them as a third partner. And so all of our HR stuff now is handled with Patrick, who is our finance and HR guy. And, I usually take some of the HR place things with him because I know the team a little bit more. But, it really just depends on the situation. Austin has places where I think he's a better hand than me, and I have places where I think I might be a better hand than him, but it depends on the day.
So having that third party involved, that must have been a good addition to the team, because you got their resource and their experience. They really give you a bit more grunt behind what you're trying to achieve with the business.
Yeah, it was so unexpected. I think it's one of those things where if you're, there's so many different measures of success. If you're trying to be successful in business or any part of life, it's like really about just being ready for when opportunity shows up, because that was not an opportunity that I was expecting, but we'd been going through the motions and trying to structure ourselves and treat our business in a way that when that opportunity arrived, we were well prepared for it. And having them on board has been a huge help. I mean, there's nothing like experience to help you like know where to avoid common pitfalls, right?
Absolutely.
And you can go read every business book in the world and you can hear the stories about the specific situations. But if you're able to find someone that's willing to get in the weeds of your unique circumstances with you and apply their knowledge there, it's invaluable. It's made all the difference.
So that kind of brings me to a question, really. How do you see things in life insofar as, do you believe in the concept of luck at all? Again, it's kind of like yes and no question, but then, then from there, what is your interpretation of events that happen in your life? So, because I'm thinking just for instance, when this company said, okay, well, we'll invest, how did you see that? Do you see that was a stroke of luck? How do you see life in terms of events? Do you believe in luck?
Yeah, so there's this Thomas Edison quote that I really like, and I had to Google it real quick to make sure I didn't slaughter it. But it's, we should remember that good fortune often happens when opportunity meets with preparation. And I think that, like, if I had to say I believe in luck, I believe in luck with that definition. There's going to be opportunities that are completely non-controllables. Like, you are not going to be able to decide when those opportunities arrive. So the controllable is, can you prepare for them? Because some opportunities will pass you by if you're not ready. But I do believe that there are so many opportunities. If you go through the effort of preparation, you'll see them and be able to jump on board with them.
So from what I'm hearing from you, your view of luck is really it's a function of, if you get out there and do things, the more active you are out there trying to do things, the more likely opportunities are going to come your way. And the key is obviously to be prepared and be able to identify them, take advantage, as opposed to some people's view of, call it luck, is that just some people are lucky. They don't have to do anything and everything falls into place.
Yeah, I mean, I can't deny that there's some like version of like some people just get a better shot at stuff than others. Like I was born to a family with loving parents in a super safe neighborhood that was fairly affluent, that I had access to a network of people that to this day I'm able to tap into for advice. That is not how everyone's born, right? And so I think there's definitely a degree of, call it luck or what have you. That's not a controllable of mine, but that definitely has been a benefit and accelerant for me. But I do care. I say that with a little bit of caution, because I think sometimes we can say, oh, look at this person, they had A, B, C, D an advantage, and so they were able to jump, that far ahead in life with way less effort than I've had. I mean, I know I look at people and I'm like, man, it wouldn't have been easier if I had A, B, C, and D. But I think the trap, especially when we're thinking about success, is I think that if you want to be happy, you got to make success relative to yourself. And regardless of the circumstances you get dealt to, it's really, how you react to them, that's where you're going to find happiness, I think. So while I think there's an element of luck in life, I think that it is a smaller factor relative to what your potential success is going to be.
And do you think a big factor in life is actually your outlook, your interpretation? Like you can choose to either see something as a negative or a positive, and you get two different people, same situation, and have two very different outlooks. Mm-hmm. To give you a case in point would be like, you come from a poor family and a poor background. Yes, you could most definitely make a very good case that I'm disadvantaged. Life's going to be very difficult because of my upbringing. Or some might turn around and go, well, yeah, because of that, I've got nothing to lose. No one expects anything from me. I'm not going to be going to university, so I'm not going to have that opportunity cost of giving up some well-paying job to go out and try something entrepreneurial, because I'm facing, minimum wage, really no prospects. So, I've got this idea, what the hell, I might as well have a crack. Mm-hmm. Case in point really is here in New Zealand. New Zealand's richest man started out after leaving school. He left school early and started out as a tow truck driver. Mm. Now, my outlook on that is that the guy had nothing to lose. He didn't have a degree, so he wasn't going to walk into some well-paying job. He came out of school early, said no qualifications. So he took the view that, well, I can have a go at anything. No one's expecting anything. Whereas, when you go to university, it's great in a way, but then there's an expectation associated with it, that, well, you've got this degree, you're automatically going to get a good salary working in, these sort of jobs. To then forego that and go, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something entrepreneurial where I might not, might not work. Don't know what I'm going to get paid. Probably won't get paid anything in the beginning. Harder steps. So I very much think the outlook is so crucial too. It's easy. If you come from a good background, it is very easy just to be in cruise mode. Because you kind of know you're going to get a half decent job and get all the support around you, so you can just cruise through life and kind of do okay.
But then your metaphorical muscles start to go through atrophy, right? Like resistance and struggle are the things that fortify us.
Exactly.
What is it like? Trees with deep roots only grow with strong wind, something along those lines. Like, I think that it is 100% outlook that drives results for us individually. And you can make a wholly separate conversation about like systemic issues and how do you increase the chance of other people to have a better opportunity. Those are all worthwhile discussions. But at the end of the day, our individual lives are controlled by us. Our outlook is controlled by us, and how far we want to go individually should not be limited by any sort of broader story that's put on us. And I think that, like you said, there's I read a story about the guy. He's a self-made billionaire here in the United States. His first job was picking up a trash route where he'd go pick up trash from a route where there was trash bags, and he went and bought the rights to other people's routes to take care of that, and then built a business picking up trash. And now it is the number one waste management like company in the country. It takes care of gathering the trash, recycling trash. Like, it is just this massive business doing this thing that, like, anyone looking at it at the time probably would like, oh, you're going to be the garbage guy. Like, you're not going anywhere. Right. But he had a bigger vision. And I think that you've got to be willing to entertain this bigger idea of self that you have to believe in more than anybody else.
Absolutely. And you see that time and time again, don't you, where people go into a profession, doesn't matter what it is, and like 99 out of 100 will just go into that profession and just see it in its micro level. Say, for instance, it might be, I don't know, a dentist having the one practice and that's it. But the one in the 100, say, doesn't see it like that. They see, okay, well, I'm starting off with one, but I'm going to grow it to 100. So they've got that totally different outlook in life, don't they?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So in your time so far, tell us about some of your challenges. What sort of things have you had to work through, and what are some of the lessons that you've learned from running your own business?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we learned really early on was that when you're building a side gig while you're trying to work full time, you're gonna just want to go crazy. Like, you're juggling so many balls. And I remember one day I was like feeling so stretched thin. Like, my day job was stressful and crazy. Story was like losing a client, and like it was like, oh, we can't afford to lose this client. Where are we going to find another client? And I remember walking into a friend of mine's office and at work and was like, dude, I don't know how to keep it all in the air, man. Like, I'm going crazy trying to juggle it all. And he gave me some really good advice. He was like, look, the secret is you can't juggle it all. Like, it's really about choosing which balls to drop. And he shared a quote with me from someone else that basically said, like, work is like a rubber ball. Like, if you drop it, it's going to bounce back up. There's going to be more work to do. But there's some things like family and really important relationships that are glass balls. And if you drop those, they're going to shatter. And that was a tough moment, just because of all the stress going on. I looked back and I was like, wow, there's a lot of important people in my life that I've just neglected, like trying to keep this all balanced. And that was the start of really trying to prioritize, like, how much am I going to let myself work day in and day out versus take care of my relationships. And, the lie, though, I think that anyone that wants to like go on an entrepreneurial journey is that there is balance, because the reality is there's not balance. Like, you're deciding moment to moment that this is the thing I'm going to focus on versus not. And to expect that one day it's just going to be this like Zen moment where there's perfect balance is just like wrong. Like, you've got to learn to like deal with the stress of today. I might be working for 15 hours. Tomorrow it might be slower. How do I like make sure that the moments that need me most are there? How do I keep the main thing the main thing? Like, that's really your job as an entrepreneur and a founder, is what's the main thing and how do I keep it the main thing?
So what's your motivation? Why do you do what you do?
That's such a good question. I mean, on like a personal level, why I do anything that I'm doing is I have a really deep belief in human progression. There's this Maslow, the psychologist. There's this hierarchy of needs, and his whole kind of like thesis was everyone has these fundamental basic needs that they have, and the most basic being like shelter and food. And then as you have food and shelter, then you have these other needs like community and friendship and love. But at the very top of the pyramid is one of the things that people usually don't talk about, and it's self-actualization. That was the very top of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think I've been lucky enough to have a lot of those things in my life. And there's some days where it feels like, man, this whole entrepreneurship thing is lonely, but generally most days I feel lucky enough that I can really focus on what is self-actualization to me. How do I be the best version of myself that I can? And I think most of us in the modern world are able to spend more time there than we probably would like to admit. But how do I be the best version of me? And I think that what's been so challenging about entrepreneurship is also what's most rewarding, because it pushes you to be a better version of yourself than that you were yesterday.
And what do you think's been the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it's keeping the main thing. like it's as simple as like, there's days where you have to make decisions about real money and real people's lives, and decide that, like for us, it's like, I would much rather retain our staff as much as possible versus like, I don't want to play a VC game. Like that's part of the reason I didn't want to go and get VC money, and why we were so selective about bringing on my old boss was, I want to retain control so that I never feel like I'm living quarter to quarter and have to make decisions to like make the VC company happy for their portfolio. Right. And you've got to make those decisions of like, am I going to work 15 hours, or am I going to go spend time with my girlfriend and like make sure that relationship is important? Because when you're a founder or an entrepreneur, so much of it is about, are we growing? Are we taking care of the team? And at the same time, you've got to also recognize that you as a human being have to be taking care of yourself so that you can effectively lead and maintain that vision. And making sure that you balance those things and keep the main thing for the appropriate situation, I think is something that has definitely been difficult. But like I said, I think it's pushed me to grow in the ways that I think I need to.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it can be very easy to get sidetracked, go off on a tangent, and then you got to pull yourself back and realize, well, it's not really adding a lot of value here, and I'm getting away from what I'm really all about. But as you say, it's very easy for it to happen. It can happen all the time. So for you, your company, how many staff do you have?
So we've got just shy of 100 people all across the world. So we've got staff here in the US, we got staff in Mexico, we got staff in China, we got staff in the Philippines. And sometimes people will hear like an agency that has staff that's not in their main country and be like, oh, you're just hiring contractors on Fiverr or something. And that's not how it is. Everyone is part of our team. They're part of the Storyy family. And yeah, it's gotten quite big in the last couple of years.
So when you say that, are they all full-time, or a lot of them will be part-time and they'll be doing work for others as well?
Full-time. So those are all full-time people. We've got a couple part-time people here in the States, but and maybe one or two in the Philippines, but generally, yeah, everyone's 100% full-time.
So how do you manage, because that's a lot of staff to have. So how do you manage that, and how do you find the productivity given that they're obviously working remotely?
Yeah, so you're across multiple time zones, so you've got to have trusted leaders with each of the teams, right? And when you go from 3 people to 100 in the space of 2 years or so, there's definitely some growing pains and structure and process changes that have to happen. I think the way we manage it is you've got to start with a shared purpose. Like our purpose as a company is to help people share their authentic message online. Like that's where it all starts. And then we've got core values that we talk about regularly. Like some offices you'll go to and they're like, we have core values, and like put a vinyl sticker on the wall and like act like that's culture. But for us, core values are the rules of the game. It's how we're going to do business. It's how we're going to treat each other. And it's what we value in our team members. And I think when we start from those core values and we start from that shared purpose, other things fall into line. Like if we all agree that as a company we value craftsmanship, or we value respect, and we value candid communication with one another, and one of our teammates violates that core value repeatedly, then we know that you're probably not the person on the bus, right? But when we're going through the hiring process and we're hiring to those core values, is this someone that values candid communication? Is this someone that, has drive? Those are the things that we feel a high degree of confidence that we're bringing people that are going to add to our culture and amplify our values versus detract from them and bring friction into the org. And so if we start from the core values piece, then things fall into place. And where we've had problems is where we didn't hire according to our core values, or we didn't have a core value fit.
And so how do you manage to remain in contact with people in such diverse areas and to build the culture? I mean, do you have like a video, a Zoom meeting and that between all the staff? I mean, what do you do to try and keep it all together?
Yeah, so lots of Zoom meetings, lots of online calls. I'll do calls at night and calls during the day, and also just recordings. Like I'll send videos to the team with my thoughts and updates on what we're doing as a company. It's funny how, video is so, people underestimate how personal video is. It's kind of like radio, where like you can sit in the car and listen to the radio and listen to the same host, and you'll be like, I feel like I know this person. I know how they think. They don't know you, but
Yeah.
you feel like you know them. And what I found is video is that on steroids. Like people feel like they know me and how I think, and it builds trust with the team. And so I'll have the team send me videos, and we'll do recordings, and we'll work remote. And there's remote was of course the thing with COVID. We all kind of learned how to work with it, and there's been a lot of companies that are going back to in office. They're kind of doing a hybrid model. Remote's still working for us, and I think that there's always going to be some people that really want to remote work. I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think it's for every company, but I think that we built that way, and I think for us it's working pretty well.
So what is your role versus Austin? What's your responsibilities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I kind of lead the team with our quarterly planning and our annual planning. I think I'm Austin. Austin says that I'm more of the visionary, and he's more of the operational guy. And so I usually help on product development, technology build out for our app, and lead those teams. And Austin's definitely really focused on our fulfillment teams and ops to make sure we're really given a quality experience. And those are the places we just kind of naturally gravitate to. And so we let each other go in those places, but we kind of have a saying in our team that you got to have short toes, so that way you're not stepping on anyone's toes, right? You got to feel like anyone can come in and share their perspective on how something should be done. We've got this language in our team that I think is really helpful for disarming contentious possible situations, where we have IPOVs, individual point of views, and TPOVs, team point of views. And we use this language because if I go and share a thought and I'm like, this is my IPOV, my individual point of view, what I'm really saying, and what we train our team to that this means, is that this is my current opinion, but I'm totally open to changing my mind. This is based off of the current information I have, and it's a rough draft of an idea, and I'm kind of sharing it because I want feedback and I want people to challenge it. And the goal is, if we're all sharing our IPOVs, we should come to a team point of view that we all feel like we can move the company forward with. And so, we try to have short toes, and when we have questions or decisions we have to make, we'll share our IPOVs, we'll debate it. And then there's certain areas where we just know I'm going to be the person that's going to be decisive and make a decision if we get gridlocked, or Austin's going to make that decision, or we're going to go and have our partner at Greenseed kind of help us and make those decisions. So there's just a lot of trust, I think, with the leadership team to execute what needs to be executed, and then build consensus when we need to build consensus.
So the business has grown incredibly quickly. What's been the secret to that? How have you managed to grow so quickly?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is we just have gotten really great clients. Like, we've got some clients with big names, like, the Cardones. I mean, Grant Cardone's, sales guy that a lot of people know, and Cardone Ventures. We've also got people like Millie, Modern Millie on YouTube. She's a social media coach. Sky Garcia, TikTok coach. Jordan Kilgar, another Kilgar TikTok coach. And so there's just kind of like it's not if you build it, they'll come, because that's not how it's been at all. Like, we'll go build something great and we're like, why is not everyone just lining up to sign up for this? but when you have great clients that are well known, I think it does help with that word of mouth piece. And I think that's been a big accelerant. And then the other part is our partner. Their business has 15,000 real estate agents on their platform. And so it's a great way where we can go and market our services to that niche specifically. Because we've got an in there and a really excited user base. So we're not starting from zero with, email lists and brand awareness. We kind of have that to tap into, and that's been an accelerant as well.
So your partner, what exactly do they do? I know you're talking about developing software before, but what specifically do they do for real estate agents?
Yeah, so the name of their company is RedX. They operate in North America, United States, and Canada. And so they do real estate leads. So they're a data company. And like a CRM kind of company. And so they've got agents that come to them to get real estate leads that they can go and find deals with. And so that's what they do over at RedX.
Okay. So what's the vision for the business going forward? What are you wanting to achieve in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I think AI is this like really interesting thing. I don't know if you've seen any of the Chat GPT stuff or any of this AI generated content stuff, but there's this.
Pretty amazing.
It's amazing. You can use just some natural language and it'll spit out images or text. And what's interesting about that is, while it's at the same time so cool and it's going to make things for so many of us easier, it also just makes you question even more of the content on the internet, right? Like, if it's so easy to programmatically create all this, well, what's real? and so I think that there's going to be a continued premium on authenticity. I think that while we're seeing text finally get there with AI, images, while we're seeing some cool stuff, still is not dependable. And video is even an order of magnitude more complex than images. And while eventually even video will be a spoofable thing, I foresee, at least within the next couple of years, video is still going to be a really important way that we can trust that there's some authenticity behind the message. And so I think that we're really trying to figure out, how do we use AI to augment authenticity rather than replace it, and use it as a way to help creators be better creators rather than replacing creators. And so for our roadmap, it's all about, how do we make it easier for you to have ideas of content to create? How do we make it easier for you to get your message out there and to turn that content into things that are engaging and unique? And then how do we make that content be easily accessed in whatever systems you're doing your work with? So it's really just, how do we make it as easy as possible to get that authentic message out there?
So for you, what's your thoughts about, the deepfake videos? They are getting better and better. It's going to come a point in the not too distant future where it's actually going to be really very difficult to discern the legitimate video from the fake one.
Yeah. So, on a high level, I think with AI, deepfakes, all of this, we're going to have major updates to our legal system. That's part of it, is we need to have better ownership of our own data, ownership of the rights to our voices and how data is used, right? Like deepfakes are definitely a real thing that are only going to get better. And in some ways, being able to use a deepfakes yourself to be able to create lots of content effortlessly is like a really cool possibility that you could use to maintain authenticity. But when other people can do that for you without your consent, that's where you're going to have issues, right? And so having greater ownership and control and traceability into that stuff is going to be important. And the reality is if you want to regulate artificial intelligence systems, machine learning systems, any of this stuff that's going to outpace our current structure, you've got to fight back at it with AI. Like, you've got to use AI to regulate AI. You have to use machine learning to regulate machine learning, because you're going to have increasing degrees of complexity that are going to be impossible for like old standards to adapt to. It's just, it's extremely disruptive technology. And I think the sooner we all recognize that, understand that, and can have like really thoughtful conversations about how we mitigate the dangers while amplifying the positive pieces of it, I think we'll all be better off for it.
So in terms of what you guys do you have many competitors?
We don't. We have a couple. I've found one, which is a recent company that is a direct competitor. That if I go look at what they sell, I'm like, oh, that's the exact thing. But most of the competitors that I've looked at do pieces of it, and so
Right.
I anticipate that we'll see more companies like us in the near future, because everyone likes a copycat. but
Yeah.
So far it's been we kind of are playing in our own playground. So we just barely did a whole competitive analysis like 2 weeks ago, looking for more competitors, and I haven't seen a name yet that's coming for our crown, but we'll be ready for them.
And in terms of your clients, I think you're touching on it before, but your clients, are they largely North American? I mean, to what extent have you got clients around the rest of the world?
So we're in North America and Europe. We've got influencers that do like dancing and things in Italy, and we've got content creators in the UK and Canada and here in the States. And so we definitely are all of our services are in English or Spanish, so we tend to like have clientele that are speaking English. But that's something that we hope to continue to have more services around in the future. But that's really kind of where the spread is right now at the moment.
So look, just taking a step back, when you were growing up, did you ever sort of have any sort of great desire to be an entrepreneur? Was that ever on your radar, or did you just kind of think you're going to get a regular job and you've just kind of fallen into this whole entrepreneurship as you grew older?
Yeah, my dad was an entrepreneur. He's a drywall contractor, and now he owns an arcade, which I can't even begin to explain the connection there. But I grew up going to construction sites and putting sheetrock on walls and doing mud, and my dad had he's done that for 30 years. And I remember there was one summer we were doing that, and my dad said something to me along the lines of, "Look, I want you to come and do this with me because I want you to learn hard work, but I don't want you to get too good at it because you need to get a job that's not so hard on your body." And my mom said to me one time, the reason that my dad worked as hard as he did was it gave him the flexibility to make sure he was always there whenever I had a performance at school or whenever I was doing something with my friends, he could show up for that. And so I think when I originally was graduating high school, I think that I was really focused on how do I not do drywall? Like I don't want to go do sheetrock. But then I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten to appreciate more what my mom said of like the flexibility that entrepreneurship gave my dad was something that I hope to one day also be able to give my family of how do I let this work for the benefit of the people I care about the most. And so I think that it's definitely my dad's entrepreneurship that kind of lit the spark in me for seeing what life could really be like that way.
And so, based on your experience today, what do you think are the key ingredients for people to be successful entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think you gotta love what you're doing. For me personally, like money is only so much of a motivator. Money to me represents freedom and autonomy, right? And sometimes you can fall into this trap in entrepreneurship where you're like so focused on making sure the dollars are working that you forget that like it's ultimately about like having the freedom you want, assuming that's what you want. Some people want a fat stack, and I'm not gonna diss on that. But for me, it's like I think you've got to really care about what you're doing, because with the days that are hard and the days that you want to give up, because you're going to have them, there's going to be so many days where you're like, forget this, I'm shutting it all down. You have to care enough about what you're building that the vision of that can drive you, even if the numbers aren't. And that's going to be the thing that I think really pushes you through. So you got to love what you're doing. You got to have a vision for it. I think the other thing you got to do to be successful is you got to know how to build a team. You got to know how to like find people that disagree with you, that maybe want different things than you, that have different priorities than you. You've got to figure out how do you get those people to have a common purpose. Like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? Like you've got to know who are the people that can help you get to that end vision that you want, and be able to build a great team that'll get you where you want to go. And then I think the last thing is just grit. Like you gotta like be able to like take a punch and get back up. You've got to be able to like have a hard day and then just accept that was a hard day and then go to the next day, because it's going to be hard, and that's never going to change. That's always going to be the case. And so accepting that and developing those muscles, that resistance to the no's, is, I think, another key ingredient into succeeding as an entrepreneur.
And just to wrap it up, just sort of one final question for those out there that aren't into business, but they've got their goals. They could be in sport, it could be in music, doesn't matter. What would be your advice to them about how best to go about trying to achieve your goals?
Yeah, I hope that anyone that's been listening to this can take something of value out of it, even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur. I really don't think that to be successful or to be happy means you have to be an entrepreneur. I don't think money equals happiness at all. I don't think that entrepreneurship is always this like amazing success story, right? Like, my story is just starting out. Who knows? This is all crash and burn tomorrow, right? like the reality is happiness and fulfillment have to be a kind of moment to moment choice. And if there's something besides entrepreneurship that has your fancy at the moment, if it's sports or art or whatever, I think it's really just trying to love the process rather than the specific place you're going to arrive to. Like if you're loving the moments that are difficult, and if you're loving the processes of getting better, then you're never going to regret whatever you're doing, right? But if you're always focused on, I've got to get to this point, and God forbid you don't actually get there at the end, well, you're going to really be putting yourself in a pretty miserable position. And so I think like learning to find happiness in the process, joy in the journey, like as much of it as it's a cliche, I think there's a ton of really valuable truth there. You got to just love the process.
Yeah. I mean, because as you said, like, it's inevitable. You're going to have tough times. But if you love what you do, you're going to put up with the tough times. But if you don't love what you do, then it's an easy, you're easily going to find yourself in a position where you go, oh, I'm done. I don't really enjoy this anyway. Why do I want to put up with this?
Right.
Yeah. Just one other final question, which I should have asked you earlier, but I've got to come back and ask. I mean, to hook Grant Cardone is quite an achievement. How did you manage that?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing. So our very first big client, he was the first client that paid us a $5,000 a month retainer. I never had a client pay me that much a month. It was like, whoa, this is crazy. And what he wanted was, and before this time, we were doing just anything a marketing agency would typically do. If you need a landing page or an email campaign, we'll do it. But this guy was like, I want to have 100 pieces of content going on my social media every single month, because I want to be as good as Grant Cardone and putting out a bunch of content. And so me and Austin looked at each other and we're like, we've never done that before, but we can figure it out. So we gave him a crazy number, because we were like, if you really want us to figure this out, you're going to have to pay us a lot of money. You have to pay us $5,000 a month, and then we'll figure it out. And so he's like, done. And we were like, oh shit, we thought he was going to say no. So now we're like, okay, we got to figure this out now. And that's what we did is we figured it out, and we made so much content for him that he, who was connected to Grant and other people that were going through Grant Cardone's, business development program, some of the other people in that program saw what we were doing. They also hired us. And then eventually the people that were running the program were like, oh, wow, you guys are doing a lot of this stuff. Like, how are you doing it? And they're like, oh, well, we're using Storyy. And then we got a meeting with them and started doing content for them. So yeah, Cardone Ventures and Brandon and Natalie and that whole crew is been powered by Storyy for a while. So yeah.
Wow, that's a great story. All right, Connor. Well, thank you so much. Really have enjoyed the interview. For those listening, just to let you know, we're also going to do a Read to Succeed. So watch out for that interview as well. But for the moment, thank you, Connor, for your time. It's been really educational, and you've shared a very interesting story of your own. So thank you.
Paul, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.